Okay, Rabbi Say, today, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to start this year, and I hope to cover everything that we want to cover. The topic today that we're going to talk about is Shinui in Meleches Shabbos. Practice Shinui, to learn how to do things with Shinui. What is the concept of Shinui? Why do we need Shinui? Where does it come? We spoke about last year, we learned about using, right? Last year we spoke about Meleches Machsheves Osra Torah, and if it's not Meleches Machsheves Osra Torah, so it would be Potter Avol Osir. Now, in certain Meleches, it's Osir Midoraisa to do them. For example, to write, Ksiva is Doraisa. You're allowed to write, right? You're allowed to write for sakana, but part of protocol is to write everything. You have to write everything that the patient needs and has to go through, and all the medication and all these type of things. There's no way that you could not do it on Shabbos. There's no way that you could try to remember and do it on Motzei Shabbos. That's not an option. That's dangerous, and that's not a way of doing it. On the other side, not everything you could say is pikuach nefesh, but it's pikuach nefesh to do it because it's pikuach nefesh derabim. That is protocol, and that's the way it has to be done. So, therefore, without going into what's the Rabbonim, what's the Oraisa, we want to diminish it and to take it down one level to a derabbonim. If you do it in a way of shinui, so even if, let's say, writing is kosev is clearly a deoraisa, but if you do it in a way of shinui, so it goes down to a derabbonim. So even for a choyle she'ein bo sakana, for example, that would be also a way to be mekel and to make it into a the Rabbonon. You have to, put your stamp on a piece of paper. It could be literally a doraisa. Shinui, doing it with a shinui, could be that will help a lot. That will do it a derabbonon. Putting stickers on paper. And I'm saying on paper because on paper is doraisa. The Rambam says, amedabek niarot. The Rambam says two soft things that you put together. It's a tolda of meleches toifer. Okay, so that is sticking two things. We're not going to go into the hagdara of that melacha, but that is a melacha. So if you could do it b'shinui, that is also a way that you could save yourself from a doraisa to a derabbonon. There are certain cases that you can do it, and I'll bring an example. For example, you have to open up doors, going through doors. Now, that's already not clear that it's a doraisa because electricity on Shabbos, it's a whole thing. We mentioned it here and there. It's a doraisa derabbonon, but clearly we have to be choishesh to the shitas that it's the oraisa. So you have a card, okay? You want to open the door. How do you open it? So normally you hold the card like this and you put it closer, right, to the sensor, and it opens up. You have narcotic closets or rooms, whatever they call it, right? I believe it's more rooms that they want clearly. The way in the hospital is who went in, who went out, what did he take, right? They want to keep track because ma'aseh shehoyo. So therefore, okay, so you need to do that. It's very, very important to do that. How do you go in? So if it's with a card, so maybe a shinui, like this, it's not a shinui. But maybe if I catch the card in such a way, it's a shinui. We'll talk about it today also, if that's considered to be a shinui or not. The problem is what happens if you have a sensor, what's called a sensor of a finger reader, right? A finger reader, in such a case, that already is a problem. Because if you put your finger Shinui, it won't read your finger and it won't open. So that is a different problem that will hopefully, I hope, towards the end of this year, we'll be able to deal with that. And there is a lot of doraises that are done, that part of them could be done Shinui and part of them cannot be done Shinui. So let's start looking. What is this word Shinui? The word Shinui basically comes from the Gemara, and the terms in the term in the Gemara is kilachar yad. You have the Gemara in Shabbos daf tzadik Beis. The Gemara Mishnah says, Amoitzi. This is interesting. Somebody takes out something mirishus to rishus. Doesn't matter if you're a righty or a lefty. If you did it in the other hand, or you did it on your shoulder, all of that is not considered to be a shinui, and you're chayiv. What did you do? You took it out from one place to another. But if you did it, that means shinui. And what is the case? For example, beragloi, he tied it to his leg, or he took it with his mouth, or here he put it here in marpeko, beozno, within his ear, in his hair. Okay. Ube pundosoi, ube pio, lemato ben pundosoi chalukoi, ube spas chalukoi bemanuloi. Besandoloi potu. Why? Sheloi hoitzi ke neged, right? Sheloi hoitzi ke derech hamoitzi. Okay, so that is with his belt, with all these different cases that he did it in a weird way. Now, I want you to understand, why is it important to see this Mishnah? Because this Mishnah is talking about what? Taking out something in a different way. But in the end of the day, what happened? This departed from place A and arrived in place B. Okay, meaning in the end of the day, nothing happened, nothing changed, and it got there. So who cares how you carried it? But this is a chiddush. Since the melacha is meleches haitzah, so you don't have a melacha here. Meaning, here it's nothing to do with meleches machsheves osra Torah. There's no meleches machsheves, there's no meleches uman in carrying something from one rishus to another rishus. But this is a melacha taking out. One of the lamites melachas is a moitzi, right? Rishus to rishus. So here the Mishnah says, since it wasn't done in the proper way, or in the normal way that people do that, that's why it's not considered to be it's considered to be kilachar yad, and the halacha is poter aval osir. That is the Rabbonim. The famous Gemara in Daf Ayin Gimel. The Gemara says here, what happens if somebody is koitzer, boitzer, goider? That's ways of cutting off fruit from tree. Says Rapapa, what happens? Somebody went, and what did he do? He threw a rock, or he threw dirt on a date tree, and a date fell down. So the Gemara says, what? Chayev shtayim, achas mishum toiles, ve'achas mishum mefarik. So he's chayev too. Says Rav Ashi, ein derech klisha bekach, ve'ein derech briko bekach. Meaning, here you see that what? Also, it's not a chisar in the meleches machsheves, but since it's not done in the right way, so the musag melacha, it is considered to be when you did it in the right way, that usually it's done. But nobody, picks dates by throwing on it things, and therefore it's not considered to be a melacha. It's another way of kilachar yad, and therefore what? It's a melacha, and that's important to know why, because not every melacha is choshev for it to be a meleches machsheves. For example, choivel is a melacha d'oraisa of choivel moitzi dam. Somebody, right, wants to draw blood. As doctors, Be'ez Hashem, you are going to draw blood. I hope by now you already know how to do it, right? To draw blood, and that is a melacha d'oraisa. So don't do it b'shinui, please don't, right? Don't do it b'shinui, but I'm just saying this is a melacha of choivel that you have to understand. The melacha is choivel if it's not done in the right way, so it is better. By the way, we mentioned before putting, we mentioned before on sticking papers, a sticker on a paper. What happens if you draw blood and you have to take the tube and put a sticker on that? So there, Be'ez Hashem, I hope one day we're going to learn that. There probably it's more of a Rabbonim. There's a chiddush of the Mishnah Berurah, and others that dover kosher and dover rach. Okay, the whole chiddush of the Rambam, it's because both of them are rach, are soft. But once it's hard, like a right. So there, that is already a Rabbonim. Okay, the Rashi in Maseches Rosh Hashanah is talking about someone that wants to fix a shofar in Rosh Hashanah. Meaning he doesn't want to fix it with a Rabbonon. If he wants to use not a regular saw or regular knife that they use for shofars, they're going magla, okay, some type of a magla comes from the word sickle. I don't know if it really means a sickle here. The tikun keleachar yadu ve'ein boy elo mishum shvus. Says Rashi, since it's keleachar yad, that normally this is not used to do this, and this is what a shinui in the maisa, in the way it's done. Okay, in the way it's done. Maybe it's not a shinui in the eichus. But we're not talking about shinui be'echos. We're talking about in the shinui, the way it's done. This is considered to be a shinui. It's important to know. Now, wherever Rabbi said, till now we spoke about different shinui. What happens if you do something that the shinui doesn't really have any change? For example, says the Chuvas Marach or Zarua that he was one of the what? The late Rishonim, the last Rishonim. V'gam nireli she'en shinui mo'ir elo keshegufa melocha nases alidei shinui kegoin yoinek. For example, the Gemara brings a case of shinui when you have a person that needs some goat milk or something like that. So he goes and he sucks right directly from the goat. Says the Gemara, that is considered to be a shinui. That's not a normal thing that is done. And that is kilachar yad. What happens if somebody wants to cook on Shabbos? So he takes a pot and he puts it on the fire. What happens if he puts it kilachar yad? Says the Marach or Zarua, you take a pot. Let's say normally you use your right hand, and you go and you put it with your left hand. Just bringing an example. Or even if you did it, let's say, without right and left, you did it in really a very weird way. You catch it like this, okay? That's really not a normal way to do it. And you did, even so, says the Marach or Zarua, that is not considered to be a shinui. Why? Because ukeshehi mitbashelet en shum shinui hoyachayev. Because what is the Yisur? The Yisur is what? Cooking. The Easter is the toitzah, the outcome that comes out of it to cook. So who cares what's the way you put it on the fire? It doesn't really matter. This Marachar Zerah, remember, because it'll be a very big nafkamita for us soon. A little bit more Gdorim before we go into different questions. Says the Eglei Tal in the Hagdama to Hilchos Shabbos. V'chein melacha she'asa oisa kelachar yoda. Here he brings from Hilchos Gittin in Even Ezer, Simen Kufov Gimel Kosov Achelkas Mechoykik Beis Shmuel Be'apri Chodosh Da'atam Shemachshirin on Get Shenechta B'Smoiloi Mishum Dedavka B'Shabbos Dechsi B'Meleches Machsheves Ad Kan Kol Shekosav Kelachar Yodo B'Smoilo Lav Meleches Machsheves here. Listen to this, very interesting. Someone wrote a get on Shabbos. The get will be a kosher get. Why? I'm sorry. He wrote a get on Shabbos in his left hand. In his left hand. Says the Chelkas Mechoykek and the Beis Shmuel and the Prichodos, the get is going to be a kosher get. The Rabbi side. The Ksivas Aget, there is a mitzvah from the Torah to do vekosavlo, to do an action, an act of ksiva. It's a mitzvah. So I would think that if the Torah says to write, you have to write it like you're supposed to write. If you went and you did it b'smoil, one would say that it's not, maybe that's not what the Torah meant to be ksiva. Says the Chelkas Mechoykek and all the Noisekalim there. In Even Ezer, they say no. Only on Shabbos it says Meleches Machsheves. Meleches Machsheves means you have to write in your right hand. So there, that's Kelachar Yad. At the end of the day, what is the tzivui that you have? Because I did ksiva. I was mekayim ksiva. Ask now. So now, if so, according to what these Noisekalim in the Shulchan Aruch in Even Ezer say, that means that anything that is done differently is considered to be Kelachar Yad is only because it's Meleches Machsheves. Ask the Eglei Tal, Rav Nezer, the Shabbos. I found the different places that are not Shabbos also. The kol sheloi kedarkoi lav klumhi. That if it wasn't done in the regular way, it's not considered, okay, anything. For example, achilo sheloi kedarkoi lav achilo li'ischayev alei. Somebody that has a achilo sheloi kedarkoi, krochei besiv. Somebody wrapped the food and swallowed it. That is achilo sheloi kedarkoi. Somebody ate something that is bitter or something like that. That is achilo sheloi kedarka or achilo gasa. It's not considered to be achilo. Or hano sheloi kederech hano son potur. If food you need to have a hano, you have to have benefit of your mouth, okay, of your inside of the mouth, and you didn't have, that is not considered to be hano. Anichnas lebayis hamenugo derech hachoyrov. Someone that goes into bayis hamenugo, he becomes tamei. But what happens if he walks backwards? It's not considered bio. That's not considered coming in. Hiktir sum sum lechol sum sum at shekol komet sheloi ein derech achila bekach ein derech haktor bekach. Okay, anyhow, if you have a pot that doesn't have any holes and something is growing there, so the Gemara says he's potter. Says Rashi, why? It's not, that is not a normal thing to go and to plant in a pot without any connection to the ground. This is talking about Shabbos. So maybe there you're going to explain, says the Avnei Nezer, because it's not meleches machsheves shari melocha udetlisha vekiuchei. He says it's not a problem of meleches machsheves. Why? Because I'm picking the cucumbers that grew in this pot. Okay, that is not a meleches machsheves. I picked it like it grows on the floor, right on the ground, and it grows in the pot. It's the same thing. But the reason that this is potter, it's because what? It's not derech zriyasham. So these are examples that ask the egleital. So it's not only halacha in meleches machsheves. Comes the egleital and gives us a lomdisha difference. Chiluk. Ach bo biruron shel dvorim. Dihine melocha kileachar yad. What is shinui? Kileachar yad, meaning if we want to translate it literally, of the back of the hand. Back of the hand is not made for us to do anything with the back of our hand, right? The back of our hand, if you do something with the back of your hand, that is from the other side. That is not a derech. Yes, b'shnei ofanim, but there's two ways to see what does it mean. Yesha melacha atzma bilti nif'elet karaui vehi shinui beichut hanifal, meaning it wasn't done in the right way. Kegain. Something that was planted in a pot that is not connected to the ground. The action wasn't done in the regular way, in the normal way. The Adam, the person that does it in terms of the eichus, in terms of the quality, standards are the same. That we didn't have any difference. V'yesh melacha, that's one way. But v'yesh melacha kilachar yad, shehu shinui be'echus hapoel levad, ve'loi be'echus hanifal, kegoin hakoisev v'smoiloi. For example, what happens if somebody practices how to write with his left hand? So the quality of the letter will come out good. Right? The quality of the letter will come out okay. But in terms of the way of doing it, shinui beichut hapoel levad v'lo beichut hanifal. So meaning the way, the quality of the action, and I want to explain what does it mean. What does that mean, the quality of the action? It means to say it was more complicated. If I hold the pen like this, and I'm a lefty, okay? And I hold the pen like this is normal, okay? I could write. But if I have to hold the pen like this, it makes it more complicated. I may end up writing a normal way, yeah? I may end up writing normal letters that a different doctor will be able to read what I wrote, okay? That is okay. But at the end of the day, it's a shinui be'eichus hapoyel. And that is a shinui. Rabbi, so remember, the first gather that we're seeing today, shinui, one of the pshatim of shinui is what? Shinui be'eichut hapoel. If it takes out of me, okay, to do it with differently, so it makes things more complicated. That is eichut shinui beichut hapoel, and the beichut hapoel levad velo beichut hanifal. Kegon akoisa b'smoilo. Av shehanifal dainu aktav naaseh karoi liyoshi menes yodov. The letters come out good because he practices. Because avotiyot v'yusharim. He wrote straight letters. Kemo imei hakotev b'yamino. No difference if he did. Right. V'chen namoitzi b'rshus l'rshus. The example that we saw today, somebody that is moitzi for one reshus to another. But I had to do it like this, right? I had to do it in such a way. Look, you have to look. If you don't look, you won't see. If I had to do it like this is what in the end of the day, it came to that place, but this is not a normal way to do it. It complicates things. ובחפץ אין שום שינוי, הוא מונח עתה ברשוס אחרת כאילו היה מוצאו כדרכו. רק שיש שינוי באיכות הפועל שלו, עשה מלאכה כדרך עשיית מלאכה. Therefore, he says like this, והנה באופן הראשון, שהמלאכה עצמה או המייסה עצמו בלתי נעשית כראוי, והוא שינוי באיכות הנפעל, זה מצינו בכמה מקומות, שלא כדרכו, לאף כלום. Yes, if you ate שלא כדרכו, meaning the quality of the food or the quality of the eating wasn't the right quality. The way of going into the house wasn't a way of going in. That is not special for Shabbos, says the Eglita. That is halacha in the whole Torah Kula. If the Torah says that you have to lavo, bia, you have to come, you didn't come. I did come. I was there. Yes, you were there, but you didn't come. Okay, so therefore he says, והנה באופן ראשון המלאכה עצמה או המייסה עצמו בלתי נעשה קרוב והוא שינו באיכות הנפעל, זה מוצאינו בכמה מקומות שלא כדרכו לאו כלומי. אך זולס מלאכת שבס, אף זולס מלאכת שבס, also not only on Shabbos. וכן אכילה שלא כדרכו כגון שאכל חלב חי. Somebody ate חלב חי. He took fat, that is parts of the fat that is osir, and he ate it without cooking it. That is שלא כדרך אכילה. או עירב בוי דובר מר, bitter. הרי יש שינוי במאכל, וכן הנכנס לבייס המנוגו דרך החוירו, והרי יש שינוי בהביו, שהיא מייסה אנסו, וכן, הכתיר סום סומו, so he brings all the examples here. אבל באופן השני שאין שינוי באיכות הנפעל, רק באיכות הפועל, only, it was more complicated for me to do it, היה ראוי, חייב, שהרי מכל מקום בפעולה נגמרה כראוי. I would say that he should be חייב, why not? Why? Because but regarding a get, that is considered to be a ksav. What does the Torah require? The commandment of the Torah, the tzivah in the Torah is bikosav. I have ksav here. Anyhow. So this is a very, very important yesod. I'm not going to go through the whole Minchas Asher on this, but here he says a little bit different. ונראה בזה בסגנון אחר, דשאין שינו בעצם המייסה החטא, משינו בויסה בלבד. וכאשר המייסה הוא משונה, דין כללי הוא בכל מקום שאין דין ותויקב למייסה זה, כדי מצינו באויכל, שלכל אחד ואחד, שלכאחר יד, אוקיי, דמייסה אכילו, משוני, וכן בבוא אל הבייס, שלא יקדרך אכילו, this is, דמייסה אכילו משוני, וכן בבוא אל הבייס, דאחור בעצם אביר משונו, etc. All these things, these are done not in the right way. אבל כאשר אין עצם המייסה משונו, אלא לאדם, זה המסוים כגון כסיבה בשמאל, אין המייסה משונה, דלוי כל יתראיית, זה עיקר דרך כסיבו, וכן מי ששולט בשתי הדף, ודרך כסיבו, לגבי דידי כבבור לכמון דף ק"ג, ואין עצם הכסיבו בשמאל, כסיבה משונה, אלא שלאדם זה המשתמש בימינו, יש שינוי בכסיבו. וכיוון שאין השינוי במייסה לא באויסהו, אינו יפות. So here, I think there is an addition to the Egleita. And Rav Asher wants to say here that anything that is done in an extra way, meaning that it's done not the way normally it's done, that is considered to be kileachar yad. That is considered to be something that is different. So meaning, even though, because basically one could ask, you're telling me shinui, but for me it's not different. Why? I practice how to do it. So yes, if you're born as someone that could use both of his hands, so then you're not a righty and not a lefty, and then you have a problem. You won't be able to do shinui. But if you are a righty and you practice and how to use your left hand, okay, and you're doing it already for 20 years, it's still a shinui. Why? Because in person, most people or whatever, righties write in their right hand. That's the pshat. So that's another thing. You're doing it in a different way. And therefore, now, here he brings another thing. What happens if you have shinui bechefza? And now we're going to see, what does it mean, shinui bechefza? So now, I want to explain a few things. And Rabbi say you have these varmekaimas, learn them inside. And now I want to explain to you a few things, okay? Listen to this. But I want to explain now a few cases and try to explain. The Ran says that ksiva melocha dakohi. Because of that, came the Chayei Adam and the Mishnah Berurah, and they say that the pshat is that what? That therefore, since it's a melocha daka, so ksiva b'smoil is considered to be a shinu. Okay? The ksiva is a melacha daka, it's a delicate melacha, and I go and I do it with that, so that's okay. I have a card. With this card, I want to open up a door. Is it different if I do it with my right hand, my right or my left hand? It's no different. This is not considered to be a melacha daka. This won't be considered to be a shinui. But if I do it in such a way, okay, like this is already a shinui. So what is this? It's a shinui in the chefza or it's a shinui in the maisa? This is the chura shinui in what? In the maisa. The maisa is done in a different way. There's a famous story that is said, very, very famous story, that the Stipler was in the Russian army. And the story that is said was with Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Both of them were there. Just the problem is that 50% of the story is not true because Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was never in the Russian army. That's what his family said. But that's what it's known. But it's, so whatever is it, the Stipler for sure was there. And they had to go and to shoot on Shabbos. And they said, whoever shoots, okay, and hits the target, you have to hit the target one time, you go back to the base. Said the Stipler, better shoot with your left hand. If you shoot with your left hand, so you take it down from a malacha deraisa of mavir, right? Using a rifle on Shabbos is definitely melaches avara, a deraisa. So if you lose your left hand, you're taking it down to a Rabbonim. Said whoever was the other one, no, do it with your right hand. And why? Because you do it, you'll finish quicker, and you'll be, and then you'll have less chilulei Shabbos. That's what he said. So the story goes that the Stipler did it with his left, and right, with 3 shots he finished it, and the other one did it with his right, and it took him more, right, longer and more shot. Okay, he had to shoot more. That's the story. But what do we see here? What do we see here? The Stipler came and he said that if you shoot with your left hand, that's clearly like what? That's a very, very big chiddush. Because by ksiva, we were mechadesh ksiva b'smoil is considered a shinui. But why shooting is considered to be a shinui? Did the marach or zarura that we saw before say that somebody that cooks and puts it b'shinui, there's no, at the end of the day, the food, we don't care how it was put there. And because the melacha there is the toitzah, and therefore what? The marach or zarura said that it's not so. So what is the pshat? What is the pshat in that? So what is the chakira? Let's say together. The chakira is shinui talui in the melacha, or shinui is talui in the maisa? The Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, actually in Siman Shin Mem talks about a question of what happens if you have a book that on the side of the book, okay, here, I have a book here. On the side of the book here, you have letters. Okay, on the side of the book, you have letters. When you open the book, obviously, you are moichek the words. And when you close it, you're koisem. Says the Rama there that what? That in such a case, somebody that opens and closes, chai mishum koisem and mishum moichek. Says the Elio Rabba. Says Elio Rabba, you know what? If you open it b'smoil, that would be a shinui, and that will diminish it, and that would be mutter. That's what he wants to say. Okay? Comes Davnei Nezer and asked a question on that. I don't understand. What is the Elio Rabba want? Why is that considered to be shinui? What's the difference if I opened up a sefer with my right hand, my left hand? Opening up the sefer is opening up the sefer. It's like cooking, like the marach or zarua. At the end of the day, right, the difference if it was done on the right or the left hand is no different. Let me give you a modern nafkamina. Using a keyboard on Shabbos. Normally, a person uses a keyboard, right, with both of his hands. Okay, you type with both hands. So what will we say? That somebody that types with both hands, so the letters that he did with his left hand is considered kilachar yad? Before we can't say such a thing. Why? Because the pshat here is that what? That the maise wasn't done b'shinui. We have to follow the maise. And the maise was done in the regular way. Right? The maise was done in the regular way, and therefore it won't be a shinui. But in terms of the melacha was done in the left hand. Yeah, the melacha was done in the left hand. So that is a good nafkamina. So therefore, the Maisa, the Minchas Asher Paskins that we follow according to the Maisa, that's what's koveya. Bein lechumra and bein lekula. For example, a chumra is what we said before. If you type, that is a chumra that comes out of it, that you don't have any way that typing, the mice is a mice. That's a normal way to do. If you open up the sefer in your left hand, it won't be a kula. It won't help you. But what kula, for example, is if you shoot with your left hand. Okay? If you do some procedure with your left hand. When I say procedure, I mean to say, for example, taking out stitches or doing something like that. Like I said a few times, please don't do any procedures b'shinui. But things that you could do b'shinui. So if we say that shinui is nikva according to the maaseh, so this will come out a kula to explain that. One of the oris on the Gemara is Rav Moshe Mipinsk. Rav Moshe Mipinsk says not only koisem, the smoil is considered to be a shinui. He says also ashoichet b'smoil is going to be pot. Says the Beis Yossi. What happens if you have somebody that wrote tefillin on Shabbos? Says the Beis Yossi, and he wrote it b'smoil. Says the Beis Yossi, klape Shabbos, he'll be potter, right? He'll be potter because it was dichtav b'smoil. But the tefillin still will be kosher. Right? The tefillin will be kosher. So therefore, if we go back to the question that we asked in the beginning of this year, if you want to use the card, then you could use the card as we said, do it in such a way. Okay? Meaning if you do it like that. what happens now if you have to press a button on Shabbos, an electric button on Shabbos? Here we have a problem. Remember the Marach or Zerua. According to the Marach or Zerua, even if I do it with my elbow, no question about it that the Maisa is done differently. But according to the Marach or Zerua, even though that's the way it's done, but according to the Marach or Zerua, in the end of the day, electricity is what? The light has to be open or something like that. The machine has to be on. And it's on. It's who cares how you press the button. Okay? In that case, the Marach or Zerua comes out a chumrah. So definitely if you don't have a choice, if you're in a case where you don't have a choice, then what? Definitely do it in such a way. Use the Shinui. Why? Because maybe we could still what? Be soymech on the day is that it's a derabbanon. And Shinui makes it a derabbanon. So to read derabbanon, in a lot of cases, it's better. By the way, there's a famous there is a Igros Moshe that is not famous because he's an Even Ezer, Chelik Dalid, Simenayin Gimel Ois Dalid, where the Igros Moshe says the following: what happens if you have a doctor that has to do writing, right? Some type of writing, he has to write a prescription. Says, asks Ramosha, what's better to do? To use the left hand, write it with a pen, use the left hand, or do something very, very modern, use a typewriter, right? That's by Ramosha, right? The times of Ramosha. Or some use, he calls it, I don't know what he means, some type of ma'arechet chashmalit, electric system. What's better? Says Ramosha, wherever you're going to type on this typewriter, he says it's not considered to be a shinui. And therefore says Ramosha, I prefer that you should do ksiva b'smoil and not, right, and not do all these systems. Rav Yashiv in Mor Shabbos Chelik Dalit says, if you have a system that, right, I'm sure you saw these faucets that you could press with your leg, right? What happens if you have a system that the outlet is with your leg, you press it with your leg? Says Rav Yashiv that is a Isur D'Rabbanan, and that's considered to be Kilachaya. The Churi argues on Ramosha. So we saw another machlokes of Achreinei Zmanenu in that. There is another shoot of Shuras Shai from Sigit. He writes, for example, what happens if people go to the mikveh, and in the mikveh, once the person is toivel, so water goes up, and a little bit of the water touches the heating element there, and that a little bit of the water that touches it heats up. Wants to say that's considered to be kilachar yad. So if we want to say, if I want to conclude and try to explain what is considered to be shinui or kilachar yad, the same thing, I would say anything that complicates things more, that makes it more harder for me to perform, that is kilachar yad. So for example, Rabbi Yashiv helped us with the computer. So today, if I ask you, it's better to write with a pen bismoil or use the computer. So if the computer is on before Shabbos, okay, or it's on because it's on, so then the chura, it's a derabbanon. If it's a derabbanon, so if you could use, like, those timbals, a cap on your finger, in such a case, that is a complete shinui. And as I said, practice it. It's not a problem. You should practice, but you should know that that's considered to be a shinui, and that would be the good thing. But using your left hand for typing, That's not considered a shinui. Where, yes, where it's going to be a shinui, for example, using a mouse. There it's very complicated, right? It complicates things to do it in such a way. There it would be considered to be a shinui. Okay, that's interesting. So that is that. Using your knuckles, for example, is considered to be a shinui also. That also would be another type of shinui. I want just to set the standards you should know. If you have, in Eretz Yisrael, we have a lot of hospitals that have groma systems. That's the best preferred is, in order to take down the levels, groma is the best. Second best is Amira Lenachri. And third best is Shinui, where, according to the Ran, says that Shinui is better than Amira Lenachri. But this is the order. Let's conclude with the question that we asked. What do we do with the finger reader? There, Shinui won't help us. This I heard from my Rabbi Asher, an unbelievable chiddush, and we won't have the time to go through the yeshivas, but there is a famous sugya of Messiah yesh bo mamish or Messiah ein bo mamish. Right? For example, a sugya from the sugya in Makis, Makif Venika, or in Shin Chav Ches, where you have somebody that has to have a tooth pulled out. Okay, so it's a whole sugya. Messiah ein bo mamish. It's a big machlokes or Rishonim and all of that. Said Rabbi Asher, if there's no other choice, so he said you should take a nachri, and if it's a woman, you should take a nachris. That should take your hand. Your hand should be like this, okay? And they should take your finger and put it on the machine. That would be a solution. You hear what this is? Big chidushin. That will be a solution because we don't have kilach hayad, and that would be considered to be amiro lenachri and to sayayim b'mamish, because he's using me as something to do like that. That is a chiddush that I have to say for today, and Be'ez Hashem, we're going to continue. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.